The mounting concern is that the planet may reach a tipping point where climate, biodiversity, water and other systems are collapsing or fluctuate excessively and uncontrolled, that the planet is not longer livable to people. The International Resource Panel, which I recently joined, has been set up to provide an authoritative science to policy forum on sustainable use and management of natural resources. Yes, thank you. The resource challenges really boil down to the famous story of stuff, or simply everything we do in life requires materials, energy and water, which we take out of nature and we dispose of after use back in nature. And nature is choking to deal with this pressure. This is very evident from the Planetary Health Check, an annual assessment using best available science to determine the ability of the planet to keep the conditions that are conducive to human health. 6 out of the 9 known planetary boundaries are already transgressed. That relates to climate change, novel entities, novel materials, biochemical flows of nitrogen and phosphorus, biosphere integrity, freshwater change and land use change. The mounting concern is that the planet may reach a tipping point where climate, biodiversity, water and other systems are collapsing or fluctuate excessively and uncontrolled, that the planet is not longer livable to people. The International Resource Panel, which I recently joined, has been set up to provide an authoritative science to policy forum on sustainable use and management of natural resources. Its flagship work is a 4th yearly Global Resources Outlook. The 2024 report found that resource use more than tripled over the past 50 years and continues to grow at about 2.3% annually. The extraction and processing of materials is responsible for 60% of climate emissions, 40% of particulate air pollution and 90% of land use and biodiversity loss. Notwithstanding these environmental impacts, we have not become smarter at using materials, as resource productivity, or basically the dollars made per kilogram of materials used, has remained nearly constant. We need to basically bend the curve of increasing materials consumption quickly. This is known as decoupling. We need to achieve more well-being for people with less material goods, and we need to make these material goods with less resources and lower environmental impacts and use them longer. These are important interdistributional dimensions. High-income countries use 6 times more materials per person than low-income countries. Low-income countries in the region, Cambodia, Laos, Myanmar, and to a lesser extent the lower middle-income countries, Indonesia, Philippines and Vietnam, need materials to meet still the needs of the people in infrastructure, housing and so on. Yet they need to do so in a more efficient material efficient way. The high-income countries, Brunei, Singapore, and to a lesser extent the higher upper middle-income countries, Thailand and Malaysia, need to free up materials for these lower-income countries, and this is a profound social challenge. And I think that it's important that we convey this back to students, to future leaders, that there is a social and distributional issue on dealing with materials, but we need to curtail and reduce the use of materials. I think I would like to highlight 2 separate evolutions in the thinking. First, there is an evolution in the environmentalism. For long, the mindset has been one of taking actions to protect the environment, or even more limited, just endangered species, such as the tiger in India, coral reefs in Thailand. This is no longer the real concern. Nature has an incredible capability to adjust to and some species will go and others might come. Hence, the real environmental concern is existential for humans, or put in other words, the planet will survive. The question is whether or not people will be living on the planet. The recognition that environmentalism is existential to people is still far from the mainstream among policymakers, business leaders and also society. And this is of great concern. As a sign of hope, I would just like to flag that the fundamental human right to a clean, healthy and sustainable environment is there, adopted in 2022. I would like to see more awareness and action to keep the state and non-state actors accountable to safeguarding the environment as a human right. Second dimension I would like to highlight is the evolution in sustainability thinking, or more precisely, operationalization of sustainable development. For about 2 decades, since the launch of the book Cannibals with Forks by John Elkington in 1999, sustainable development discourse has been dominated by the triple bottom line approach, which is based on some conceptual balancing between economic, social and environmental outcomes, or in short, profit, people and planet. Business argued that without a profit, there's no social and environmental outcome, whereas the environmentalists argued that without a healthy environment, there is no opportunity for business. This triple bottom line thinking is still prominent, but to a certain extent, unfortunately, also terribly outdated. Sustainable development means peace among people and peace with nature. This peace with nature requires us to solve what is now known as the triple planetary crisis, referring to the interrelated existential crisis of climate change, loss of nature and biodiversity, and accumulation of pollution. So the sustainable development discourse is transitioning from a triple bottom line, balancing profits, people and planet, to solving the triple planetary crisis of climate, nature and pollution. Maybe I can make 3 small points. Firstly, I think the topic of policy needs to be very clear, and on many of the sustainability topics this is not the case. We need to invest in localizing and contextualizing the sustainability challenges and solutions so that these can be understood by local policymakers, businesses and other organizations. Second, policy needs a motivation, and just a global commitment to sustainable development goals or otherwise might typically not be enough. The best way to convince politicians is often to motivate business and other opinion leaders to speak out on these topics. And thirdly, I think we need to keep in mind that policy is a process. Writing a policy is easy, but getting it implemented, monitored and enforced is the genuine challenge. This cannot only happen if stakeholders are involved in formulation and empowered institutions and mandates to implement. This requires governance, transparency and accountability, and unfortunately many societies are running low on this. In short, don't fall in the trap of suggesting international best practices and policies. Most often these are suboptimal or in other situations, if not detrimental at all. First, we need a proper understanding of what innovation is, and that is often lacking. It's not just about the spaceship that will land us on Mars or the next generation of smartphones. So the Organization of Economic Cooperation and Development, OECD, has been quite pragmatic in defining innovation as a product or service that's simply better and being applied compared to its predecessor. This can be new to the world, new to the country or the sector, or just new to a business or people. In my view, this means that innovation brings 3 elements, basically science, technology, design thinking and entrepreneurialism. Science to make sure that the innovation works, and design thinking to ensure that it meets the customer need, and entrepreneurialism to ensure that somebody is putting his or her weight behind getting the thing accepted by end users. Where any of these 3 misses, the innovation will remain limited in scale and in impact. Second, coming to social innovation, it's normally construed as serving a specific social goal. Employment for people with disability, or fair trading practices for farmers and artisans. I would argue that this needs to a makeover and suggest that the scope of social innovation be expanded beyond just philanthropy. We could take the subject areas of ISO 26000 standard for social responsibility as a reference. That means focusing on social innovation on human rights, labor, environment, community, consumers, environment, fair practice and governance. Another element which is often put forward by scholars is that social innovation includes then also an empowerment dimension. In practical terms, it's not just about paying a fair price to the farmer, but it's also about empowering the farmer to just take care of his or her own destiny. For an academic foundation, I believe more focus and recognition is needed for sustainability science. And if I say sustainability science, I don't just mean application of established social or natural sciences to the sustainability topics. Leading scholars have argued that sustainability science is distinctive, vibrant and maturing field of research defined by the sustainability problems it studies rather than by the discipline it employs. This implies that it has to be purpose-bound, so it needs to contribute to solving sustainability challenges, integrated and interdisciplinary. I observe that many scholars, and I might be included, rather remain in their disciplinary comfort zone. It's a challenge not just at the School of Global Studies or Thammasat University, but for the academic community at large. To break out of the disciplinary silos and to support development of solutions to sustainability issues, which we then say as science for sustainability, and or improve our understanding of the complex interplay between human, technological and ecological systems that influence sustainability, or the science of sustainability. I believe that this would be really an important role to work in particular with the postgraduate students on advancing sustainability science. Yes, allow me to share maybe a few glimpses of the action research I'm involved in on circular economy in Southeast Asia. We observed an almost anti-neocolonialism attitude against circular economy from government and business leaders. So circular economy is invented in Europe and maybe in Japan and other advanced countries, and is now kind of enforced on Southeast Asia. And that is causing some reluctance to consider it. We felt that that attitude ignores the opportunities and benefits that circularity practices are already bringing to businesses and societies in Southeast Asia. So we set out to uncover circular economy business cases, practical applications of circular economy concepts by businesses, and so far we got about 80 documented so far. And we found many inspiring examples. So converting rice husk into biochar, and then an insect repellent to reduce fertilizer and water use, and adapt farming in Cambodia, changing coffee harvesting practices in Vietnam to be able to produce a herbal cascara tea from the leftover coffee berries, or uplifting coconut farming in the Philippines to produce a range of marketable byproducts, or growing a leather substitute material on agricultural waste with mushroom mycelium in Indonesia, and many more. As these business cases have been released over the past 12 months, we observe growing acceptance and interest from business and policymakers to consider circular economy. As a tangible outcome, we launched the ASEAN Circular Economy Business Alliance to bring businesses together on circular economy. And I'm actually also one of the co-conveners to encourage more entrepreneurs in Southeast Asia to adopt circular economy. I believe it's important for the future leaders to reflect, engage and speak out on the problems and challenges of the world, among people, between communities and countries, and with climate, nature and the environment. Ask the right questions. Is it the light we see at the end of the tunnel, or might it just be the headlight of the train traveling in the opposite direction? In addition, I would say walk the talk on governance, and that means consider and take responsibility for the impacts of your actions and decisions on society and the environment, beyond philanthropy. Nobody will get it right everywhere, but if we all make some moves in the right direction, we and the people we care for will have a better life to live in the future.